Alrighty guys, so really quick before we start and jump into this video here, I've got a bit of a major life update for you. So I was in the grocery store, right, about 30 minutes ago, and I was wearing my Under No Pretext shirt. And really cute guy comes over and he says, "Hey man, nice shirt." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And then he smiles and he walks away. I don't know exactly when the wedding is going to be, but I'm going to keep you updated on that. So just stay tuned. Anyways, start the video. We're going to hop over here to the Tic Tac, which I don't do a lot, but this is where the kids these days get their news. And a surprisingly base take from Anna Kasparian, of all people. I never thought I would say that on this channel, but that's where we are at. I put this up about a week ago, but I've been kind of thinking about it, and there's enough here that we really should talk about, so we're going to expand on it. But let's just watch this really quick. And it would be excellent if Spectrum would give me internet that would allow me to actually watch this with audio. Let's try again.
Left needs to arm itself.
Say less, Anna.
Left.
Now, real quick, before anybody asks, yes, those plates are level 4, if you know, you know. But Anna Kasparian, of all people, saying the left needs to arm itself. Now, this is particularly interesting because she spent her entire career talking about how we gotta ban guns. Guns are bad. People who have guns, not great. But here she is, saying the left needs to arm itself. And this is kind of coming in a string of surprisingly good takes from her since Roe got overturned. The other one that she said was that, I'm done with the Democrats. They aren't protecting us. They're fake resistance against the right, which kind of ties into what I always say about the Democrats, which is we on the left don't hate Democrats because we like Republicans. We hate Democrats because, for all intents and purposes, they are Republicans, right? It seems like she's finally catching up with that. And she's also finally catching up with the fact that you don't defend against fascism by disarming yourselves, right? Now, this is true in both the interpersonal setting or the governmental setting. I'll explain what I mean by that. So the position of we need to fight fascists, right? They're going to be coming through like armed militias, and they're going to be hate criming people and terrorizing communities with weapons. We should not have guns. That doesn't add up at all. It doesn't make any sense. The other one is that fascists are taking over our government. Real Nazis are taking over our government. And in like 10 years, we're going to look back and how did this happen? How did we get 21st century Hitler in America? And also, by the way, we should give up all of our guns and make sure that the government is the only ones who has the big guns. Please make that make sense. Make that make fucking sense. But they don't, right? Because it doesn't make sense. And so it's beautiful for me to watch as kind of like the upper middle class, white, suburban, cul-de-sac, liberal, leftist crowd finally seems to be figuring this out. Because again, let's just read this off real quick. The based take from the based Giga Chad Karl Marx. Under no pretext shall arms and ammunition be surrendered, and any attempt to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary. And the reason why this is so important is because you got to understand, guns are not a right-wing issue. It's been portrayed that way for a long time, but that's just not what it is. Populist icons on all ends of the political spectrum understand that you do not free oppressed peoples by disarming them. Marx knew that. The founding fathers of the U.S. knew that. Huey Newton had a really good quote that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was basically that, disarmed peoples are slaves to their oppressors. So buy guns. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And it's true, right? Especially now, as we, I think, are seeing a rise of fascism in America. I think it's bipartisan, for sure, in different ways, right? You have the Democrats coming along with their DHS, Department of Misinformation, basically a Ministry of Truth, straight out of 1984, literally. Then you have the Republicans doing Republican shit, right? You have the Democrats trying to expand the surveillance state. You have the Republicans trying to criminalize being gay, literally, not just gay marriage, but gay sex. It's not going away. And when you also look at the rising rates of hate crimes, buy guns. That's all I can really say about that. But so for this particular thing, though, with Anna, she actually has more to say. And so I want to go into that. Let's see if my internet will cooperate. Come on, Spectrum. Don't let me down.
The left
there we go.
Needs to arm itself. Gun laws aren't going to change. The right wing is vicious. They can't wait to slaughter people. They fantasize about it every day. They even put it in their political ads. The left, at this point, needs to be smart, get trained, arm yourselves. I don't know what's coming at this point. But how many times does the right wing need to tell you that they want to slaughter you for you to do what's necessary to protect yourselves?
Now, here's the thing, because it does sound hyperbolic at face value if you don't know what she's really talking about. But as someone who was brought up in like the evangelical far like Christian nationalist right, ultimately, here's what it is, right? We used to talk about and fantasize. Me and all my little friends in high school would fantasize about, stomping out people who burned the American flag. Oh, I wish they would do that in front of me. We would joke about, killing commies isn't murder because commies aren't people. We would, fantasize about, like when we have the new revolution, when 1776 happens all over again and we get to take our guns and fight off the leftists. That was back then. That was like 10 years ago, right? Now they're talking about how all gay and trans people are groomers and pedophiles. What do we do to groomers and pedophiles? Real ones, obviously. But that's the thing. They're setting it all up. And it's worse than when I was in high school, but I got the behind the scenes look, right? I know what it is. So I don't think that she's being entirely hyperbolic here. Now, I don't think it's going to happen right away, but I do think as we're watching groups like Patriot Front, Oath Keepers, etc., do more and more marches through cities, either armed with guns or unarmed with guns, but it's been both, right? I think we're seeing this become more and more common. And ultimately, communities do need to be able to defend themselves, right? Whether you're on the right or the left, you should be agreeing with this, by the way. Communities, when they have an invading force of people seeking to do them harm and to terrorize and intimidate them, communities need to be able to defend themselves, right? Whether you believe in the Second Amendment, right, or whether you believe in under no pretext, I don't really think it matters. I think this is something that libertarians of all ends of the political spectrum should be able to come together on and say, no, we won't have this. We are not going to have authoritarian fascists marching through our communities with weapons, terrorizing people, oftentimes hate criming people, marginalized communities, and let that go unchecked, right? So again, just to kind of come back around to what she's saying, and we'll continue a second, I don't think it's hyperbolic to think that this is something that's coming down the line and that we should get out ahead of and have our communities prepped for now. Oh, Spectrum. Bro.
I'm sorry.
There we
Gun
go.
laws aren't going to change. They're just not. We have one side of this country that's full of lunatics who salivate over mass deaths, mass murders, and then you have the other side that's like still playing patty cakes, hoping that the Democrats are going to protect them. Get armed. Buy your guns. Please keep them safe. Lock them up. I don't know if you're ever going to need to use them. I hope you don't. But at this point, I'm getting increasingly uncomfortable at the thought that you have right-wing lunatics who are heavily armed, constantly telling us that they want to slaughter us, okay? And we're just sitting ducks.
Actually, another example here, I want to circle back around to them like marching around armed and whatnot. So during Pride Month, there were a bunch of examples, especially in like more rural communities, of armed right-wing militias and even just like loners showing up with their plates and their rifles and everything, oftentimes with signs like "groomers aren't welcome here" at just regular old Pride events, right? I don't think that you can really make a case at that point that this is a non-issue, right? You have armed people explicitly saying what their intentions are, showing up with weapons, ready to enforce their intentions to vastly intimidate minimally. I don't think you can ignore that anymore. You really can't. And I don't think most people are ignoring that anymore. I think most people are aware that that is the issue. So it's very good to see that people like Anna are taking it to a more mainstream, kind of like lefty, liberal, MSNBC adjacent type audience and saying, hey, look, we can't just complain about it. Complaining about it and saying, oh, we're so scared, does nothing. Because no one's coming to save us, right? If Uvalde has taught us anything, police aren't coming to save us, all right? If they're not going to come and save a bunch of little kids from getting gunned down, they're not coming to save your grown ass. They're just not. And the Supreme Court has even ruled that they don't have to protect you, right? Cops are not there to protect individual citizens because our Supreme Court is wonderful and they love us and they care about our best interests. But so, ultimately, the point that I'm beating to death in this video, you are responsible for your own defense. No one is coming to save you. The left needs to arm up. And so, again, on this channel, we give criticism where it's due. So I bash TYT rather frequently. However, we also give credit where it's due. And absolutely credit due here to Anna Kasparian. Now, I think what's interesting, too, about this particular take is she's saying that the gun laws aren't changing, right? She's not saying she's in favor of keeping gun laws the way they are. She's just recognizing that they aren't changing, and so the gun landscape is not going to change, and the left needs to get with it. You know what? That's a different take than mine, but she's coming to the same conclusion. I'm all right with it. Now, I want to hop over to Vaush, who he's somebody that I consider a bit of a mixed bag, right? I think his foreign policy takes really rough. That's basically just mainstream Democrat. Basically, he's been in favor of every war since Iraq, right? Iraq was the bad war, but everything since has been okay. Sketchy. His Assange take is also trash. However, Vaush is the only high-profile YouTube lefty that I'm aware of who's been under no pretext from the start. And I respect the hell out of it because it's not a popular position. And he advocates for that on a fairly regular basis. But so he has some stuff to say here about, the incoming rise of fascism and what needs to be done to protect ourselves. And I think it's really useful. Wow. All right. Hey, can somebody just send me something for Verizon? Spectrum's killing me.
I think it's also very important on a personal level to protect yourself. If the worst comes to worst.
Why did I say Verizon? It's not Verizon. Verizon doesn't do internet. Jesus Christ.
And we see legitimate civil conflict as a product of Republicans weaponizing our faltering democracy to begin purging dissidents. And that's not super unlikely at all. We have an incredibly advanced surveillance state, especially within red states where, the state government would comply with any kind of broader Republican project. The idea of people getting broadly rounded up is not at all that unlikely. Barr attempted, or at least
I don't know about that, to be perfectly honest with you. That to me does also seem slightly hyperbolic, but here's the thing. I also thought that overturning Roe was hyperbolic, right? I didn't think that would happen. I didn't think that they would openly talk about how they're going to come after gay marriage and overturn that in the Supreme Court either, right? So I guess my point is, while I personally am not convinced that they would do any type of a roundup, I've reached the point now where I'm really not ruling much of anything out. Oh, Lord. We're just going to let it go all the way.
Barr attempted, or at least talked about, bringing sedition charges against BLM protesters way back in 2019, I think. That would have been monstrous and effectively ignoring our First Amendment rights. But it's something they're willing to do. They've only gotten more radical since then. So to that end, people hate it when I say it, but yeah, I think you should buy guns. I think you should buy guns. I think you should train yourself in their use. I think you should stockpile a reasonable amount of ammunition, water, bean cans, and other emergency supplies. I'm not a prepper. You can look online for resources if you want.
I said I wasn't going to pause it again. I was going to let it go through, but I lied because this is an important point. Prepping has been very much taken over by right-wingers and whatnot. However, this is another instance of this is not a right-wing issue, right? Prepping, or prepper communities, is what they call it in the right wing. Lefties, we can just call it mutual aid. It's the same exact thing, literally. You prep up and you have a little community of food and other essential resources that you guys can interchange in the event of a disaster, or even just right now because the economy's trash, and it's not a right-wing issue, right? So you can do this without giving up your wonderful lefty aesthetics and just call it mutual aid and do the same thing, and you should be doing it, right? With the food shortages that are going to be coming here at the end of the year, right, due to the lack of farming in Ukraine and Russia, and just other stuff that's going on with the supply chain, etc., it's a good idea anyways. But having communities of people that you're able to organize outside of the system, Jesus Christ, they're loud today. You need to be able to have everything taken care of for yourselves like that. So absolutely get into it. Get into prepping, get into mutual aid, whatever you want to call it, just do it.
Bean cans and other emergency supplies. I'm not a prepper. You can look online for resources if you want. The idea here is not that you're going to John Wick your way out of a fascist coup, only that in the grand scale of things, the idea of civil unrest becomes much more manageable when you and people in progressive areas around you are on average more likely to own firearms. Of course, if you are mentally unstable or you feel you can't healthily possess a firearm, then that's to your discretion. Don't go doing anything that you consider unsafe. The idea of personally owning a firearm and using it in some kind of, heroic action movie sequence to defend yourself is largely a child's fantasy, albeit one that people indulge in frequently, and one that basically, sustains the entire American gun industry. For me, it's about community defense, It's not, maybe one day you, an individual, are going to single-handedly march on Washington and end fascism, inshallah. But rather that perhaps you live in a community that is relatively progressive, and if civil unrest ever becomes a possibility, I think that you'll sleep more safely at night, knowing that you and your neighbors who don't want you to die have the means to defend themselves if far-right militias ever make their way through their town.
And we can honestly just stop it right there, because what he's really highlighting here, and I want to backtrack to what he was saying, you're not going to John Wick your way through anything. No, you're genuinely not. The idea that you're going to do any type of lone wolf heroic shit is just not going to happen, right? The entire point of what I'm saying, what Anna Kasparian was saying, and now what Vaush is saying is community, right? Because the right wing has done a very good job of this with prepper communities, with militias. They have organized large groups of people together in order to basically create power for themselves, to be used in situations that they can get away with, right? Basically, the left is completely disorganized in this manner, right? We don't have a lot of guns. We don't have a lot of training. We don't have a lot of community to, like, in a self-defense category, right? And there will be no one individual person that can save a bunch of people. That's just not how that works, right? One person versus 20, that's not how that plays out. These are not NPCs. These are people, right? Who are going to fight back just as hard, if not harder, because they've had more training. A lot of these are combat veterans, right? So ultimately what needs to happen is, in any kind of defensive setting, you would need to have a whole bunch of people working together in order to keep yourself safe. And again, I want to stress the point, this is defensive that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about going out and attacking whatever you define as a fascist. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. Make absolutely no mistake about that. What I'm saying is, if you have an armed fascist militia coming through your neighborhood attacking people, you want to have a community where you can say no and actually be able to make them leave, because the police will not do that for you. That is the entire point. So I think we can wrap it right there for this little stream. Again, guys, under no pretext, buy guns, buy your food preps, train, be smart with your guns, right? Get a safe. For fuck's sake, do not leave that shit lying around. People do it all the time. That's why we have so many gun accidents in America. Do not be that guy. But more importantly than anything else, whether you believe you are personally capable of someone who would be in a defensive role for your community or yourself or not, organize with other people who are, right? Everyone has a part to play, right? Maybe some people have the part of growing food. Maybe some people have the part of they know medicine, right? And like first aid and like how to handle like traumatic injuries or whatever. Maybe somebody knows just great ways to store and preserve food for long periods of time. And then some other ones of us know how to use guns or know how to fight or whatever. Everyone's got a part to play, and hopefully we will never need any of this. I really hope to God we'll never need any of this. But in the event that does happen, whether that's from militias or a government or whatever, we're all gonna feel a lot better knowing that we got ready for it. So that's all. Based Vaush, based Anna, based cute guy at the grocery store earlier who liked the Under No Pretext shirt.